All right, understanding political parties. So we talked about the responsible party model. Um, the responsible party model. Oh, we haven't talked about this yet. Excuse me. This says that parties should be held accountable to have distinct, comprehensive programs, and candidates have to follow through on what they say they're going to do. But candidates don't want to do that. They want to be incredibly vague. Here in the 2012 election, one of the big conversations has been that Mitt Romney and his Vice President Paul Ryan never discuss specific policies. Now, whether you accept that criticism or not, that's a general common criticism of politicians, is that they speak very, very vaguely when they're running for office. Because once you tie yourself down to specifics, all you're doing is creating problems for yourself as you're going to upset people. And the responsible party model, and this is kind of an ideal of how we would like to see political parties run. The majority party carries out what it says it was going to do and then accepts responsibility, whether that be good or bad. Of course, parties don't do that. Parties, if the economy collapses while you're in office, you blame other things. You blame the opposition. If the economy does great, of course, you take all the credit. And your opposition is going to do the same thing. If it collapses, they're going to try to stick it on you. If the economy booms, they're going to say none of it is because of what you did. American political parties don't really work this way. They do not take responsibility. They do not state specific policies they plan to implement as they run for election. And they may or may not implement what they say they're going to do as they're running. And there is no mechanism for party discipline. There is no way to force them to do this other than vote against them. But honestly, most people aren't paying enough attention to know what's going on, so that doesn't really work. The parties lack uniformity. And this tends to keep government small. It's very difficult to even get your own party on board for really, really big change. For example, when Bill and Hillary Clinton tried to reform the healthcare system in 1994, they were unable to maintain their own party discipline to get this done. Even the healthcare reform that was passed in 2010 didn't look much like what many of the elected Democrats wanted to see happen because they could not keep party unity. But it also makes cutting government programs different. Individuals focus on getting more from government for their own constituents. So if I'm an elected politician, my concern is my district. And so I am negotiating, I am bargaining to try to keep what's in my district there or add more to it that my voters want. And so, as opposed to maybe looking at the broader picture of what's good for the government, we'll talk a lot about that when we talk about interest groups. Political parties are no longer the main source of information for voters. One of the things about the explosion of media, and I think particularly of the internet here, is that people now can kind of make up their own mind, gather their own information. There are many, many more voices out there. There's been a strong challenge to the idea that there's two positions, the Republican and then the Democratic position. So parties have diminished somewhat in importance, particularly as identification with parties has declined significantly. But the problem is we still have an electoral system that is going to give the victory to whoever gets 50% of the vote plus one. And so there is always going to be an incentive, even if it's a loose coalition, to organize groups of voters into coalitions behind one candidate who they think can get that majority of the vote. Parties, of course, are one of the great linkage institutions in American politics. They are a way that we interact with the government and the government interacts with us. We have a two-party system. It is not really by choice. It is a function of the way our government works. If we don't change the way the government works, we're not going to ever have anything but a two-party system. All right, and that's it.